Awesome. There we go. Happy Wednesday, everybody. Many awesome and lovely souls here for kicking off the very first DeepFund town hall, just initiated by most of you know us already from the Catalyst Swarm and Project Catalyst in Cardano. And we started to build up in the last year the Singularity Swarm as well. So pretty much duplicating and replicating what we do in Catalyst for SingularityNET ecosystem, specific focus on Project DeepFund, where Jan Horlings, you will explain everything what it is about later. And from our perspective, from Singularity Swarm, as you know already, what Catalyst Swarm is doing is pretty much the same, really providing spaces and environments where people come together to collaborate, to share ideas, to listen to each other, build awareness of each other. And in the best case, then, having awesome collaborations, which then help the ecosystem and the community to move forward in a really healthy atmosphere and culture. Because when it comes to ecosystem, it comes to the society which lives in this ecosystem, and the society is determined by its culture. The culture is you guys, and culture is peer-to-peer interaction, right? And therefore we have this events and sessions and workshops and meetings where we have quite too many now, I would say, because most of us hang around in Zoom calls and Google Meets and Discord calls. I think more than in a real life, actually. So we definitely have to figure out a way how we can stabilize this a little bit. But however, and Project DeepFund, to give it a really short overview and hint to it, is most of you know what Project Catalyst is already. And Project DeepFund, I would say from own experience and perspective, by engaging there since beginning of this year, is something like a Catalyst 1.0, which also has a look on Catalyst, looks there and says, oh, okay, what are the guys there doing? How are processes, systems, whatnot is working? And how to develop a similar process, but definitely not do a one-by-one copy-paste, but make it very specific and unique then for building up the SingularityNET ecosystem. And SingularityNET is like Cardano, just in AI, so decentralized AI on the Cardano blockchain, powered by SingularityNET. And this was initially built on Ethereum and is migrating since last year, I think, to Cardano. Creation is pretty much on 95% happening, done already. And therefore it's really important and great to have a bunch of Cardano builders, enthusiasts, and visionaries here, because whatever may happen in SingularityNET will definitely need and appreciate your help and engagement there. And with this, I shut up and handle over to Jan, who is the Gabash. Most of you know this name already from early Catalyst days. Was the architect behind Catalyst. And Jan, he's the Catalyst, the DeepFund, I would say, architectural mind and moving this whole thing forward. And with this, Jan, you have a lot to say and to introduce and to present. So.
Thank you, Felix. Yeah, maybe you could say I'm the catalyst behind deep funding. But of course, I know about Catalyst, and we looked at Catalyst for deep funding. And actually, initially, we had the idea of also onboarding with SingularityNET on Catalyst, but there were some reasons not to do it, and we can go into that in more in depth later. But besides all the functional reasons I could imagine, one reason is also that deep funding is also very much about experimenting. And that is perhaps the part that I like most about it. So we are now in the second round of deep funding, and there's already so much different than in the first round. And we had a governance round in between, things that we didn't even think about when we started. And so it will be very interesting to see where this journey will lead us and where we are a year from now or 2 years from now. And it's experimenting not just to improve the processes of deep funding, but also experimenting in improving everything around decentralized governance, at SingularityNet, just like Cardano, you know, I think a lot of people here are from Cardano, but I don't think it's a necessity to be from Cardano to be here. Not a prerequisite, I should say. Decentralized governance is important, and we also are using deep funding to get experience with decentralized governance in a number of ways, and we hope we will be able to use that on an even wider scale than just deep funding. But that just as a spontaneous reaction to what you were saying, Felix, and thanks for that wonderful introduction, but also thanks a lot for taking this initiative, collecting all these wonderful people here already in the first version of this town hall here together. And I feel, yeah, privileged and honored and plain happy to be able to explain everything. Well, maybe not everything, because there's a lot out there, but a lot about deep funding and also about SingularityNet. So this is already a sizable group. Still, I'm perfectly fine with keeping this session as dynamic as is practically possible. So I don't mind being interrupted. Actually, I hope that it will be a dynamic discussion and not just me talking. So if you have any questions, just let me know. I just was mentioning before the camera was on that I'm really bad at multitasking. So don't expect me to talk and read at the same time. Even listening and reading is hard for me as a male individual. Yeah, feel free to put up your hand or maybe even to interrupt if you want. And if that's getting too annoying, I will let you know. So I did make a few slides, partly for you to read so you have a better grip on what is being said, and partly for me not to become too distracted and deviated, but stay on course if that is necessary. But as mentioned, we can also deviate should that be wanted. Actually, that would be great. Let me share my screen. Are there already any questions up front? Oh, wait a minute. I'll just leave it like this, or shall I put it on slideshow? I'll just leave it like this, if that's okay with you guys. Or let me just enlarge my other screen, one moment. So deep funding, I'll just go ahead. Deep funding is an initiative by SingularityNet, a program by SingularityNet. And SingularityNet is all about AGI, artificial general intelligence, and trying to be beneficial to the world. For an agenda, I thought about these 4 topics. So I thought it might be good to give you a little bit of explanation on SingularityNet and what we're doing, what we're all about. There are also a lot of spin-offs, as we call them. Then I can tell you a little bit about the background of deep funding. So why did we start it? What is the purpose? Then there will be some details on DeepFund Round 2, which we are currently in. So that round has opened. And then if you would like it, we can have some further discussions, and I can tell you a little bit about the processes that we are currently experimenting with and deploying and on that whole governance part that I was already mentioning. Alrighty, let me see. Is there already an important question coming up? I see some things in my screen. No, I think I can safely ignore all that. All right. So if there is any request on another topic, or if you would like me to emphasize a certain topic on behalf of another topic, or in spite of another topic, then let me know. Cool. SingularityNET. Let me see. I'll just make my screen a little bit smaller. So, SingularityNET. Yes?
Before you start, Jan, I lost connection for it, sorry. Jan will present several points, and after each point, there will be directly a Q&A as well, where everybody can address questions if you have some then.
Yeah, we'll make a short pause after each of these points. So if there are things in the chat, I can read them and go through it. If there are any immediate things, don't hesitate to put up your hand or just to say something. And we'll see how it goes. So SingularityNET, the mission of SingularityNET, I'll just read it aloud, is the creation of a decentralized, democratic, inclusive and beneficial artificial general intelligence. That's quite a mouthful. But what we're basically trying to do, you know, I've said it a lot of times in our organization, there is no lack of ambition anywhere in SingularityNET. You will never, ever propose any idea and somebody will tell you, Jan, this is way too ambitious. No, that won't happen. People reach for the moon at SingularityNET. And probably the most ambitious thing that we could try to achieve is creating artificial general intelligence. That's a huge goal in itself. You could say it's the last invention that we as humanity need to make, because once we have an intelligence that is equal to ourselves, then obviously it won't take long before we have an intelligence that is much more intelligent than we are. And so whatever we could invent, we can have that intelligence invented for us. Obviously, that is also a risky thing to develop. And the purpose of SingularityNET is to make it less risky and to try to maximize the odds that any artificial general intelligence that we are developing will be beneficial to humankind. And we think we have a better shot at that than, say, a country, whether it's China or Russia or the US, or a big corporate. Whether it's the Big Four or a Chinese company or whatever. Because a lot of those AIs developed in those contexts will be after maximizing money, maximizing your attention span, doing stuff with spying or weaponry or whatever. And it's very hard to see how that will trigger a general intelligence that is beneficial for humanity. So what we try to do is to create, not only to create artificial general intelligence, but also to make it accessible to everyone. And we do that through our decentralized AI platform. Actually, that is one of the ways. I'll tell you a little bit more about our technology stack later on. But the idea is that by making AGI accessible to everyone, first of all, it can get inputs from everyone and everywhere, and not just from a niche like a corporate or whatever. So it will get inputs from you, me, and everyone, the good and the bad, but hopefully mostly the good. And that will build that AGI and form it. Much like, I would say, or as Ben says, Ben Goertzel, Dr. Ben Goertzel, our CEO, educating, or how do you call it, raising a child. That's the way we should look at AGI, because once we have AGI, it will be extremely hard to control, and people are thinking about it. But I don't think you can seriously control an intelligence that at some point will be 1,000 times as intelligent as you are. So the best odds we have would be to raise it and to infuse it with our own norms and values that we think are beneficial, and then hope for the best. So that's what we're aiming to do, so that AGI on our platform and all AI services on our platform are literally available for everybody to add, but also to consume. So that is the way we want to make it democratic and inclusive. So our strategy of doing that, go a little bit more in the tech stack a little bit later, but we have a decentralized AI platform that is up and running today, and anybody can add their AI service there. We also have a marketplace on top of the platform, so the platform is really a protocol, and it's aimed at mainly the transactional layer. Do trustless transactions between an AI supplier and an AI consumer. And the marketplace on top of that is curated by us. So anybody could put any service on the platform, but the ones that are on the platform, on the marketplace, should be aligned to our mission and our vision and our values. So what we are doing, what we're offering today is have that service. Anybody can put the service there and can start monetizing that service. And any front-end application, which might also be interested, especially to the folks from Cardano, can use services on the platform by using already software that we already prepared, like SDKs, etc., and then creating a business model based on the API calls created by that or consumed from that service. That is the platform in its simplest way, and that is already quite interesting. When it gets a lot more interesting, and what we're working on today is what we call AI-DSL. And AI-DSL is our AI domain-specific language, meaning a language designed to have these individual AI services collaborate and cooperate together. And that AI-DSL, you should see it as an AI in itself that has sufficient intelligence to create workflows between services with the purpose of having executing a bigger goal than any single services could do. And you can imagine then you have very small services that are clustered in bigger services that are clustered in bigger services. And all this would be dynamically done on the fly. So whenever there is a new service emerging or a service with better attributes like cheaper, more reliable, faster, or better quality output, or whatever you want, or better reputation, actually, it could be exchanged, and the AI-DSL could make a new configuration on the fly. And you can imagine that should you have not the current 75 services that we have on our platform, but something like, say, 50,000 services on that platform, and AI-DSL would be continuously working on orchestrating these individual services. That could already be a way for artificial general intelligence to emerge spontaneously from all these AI services. So that's when it gets really interesting. And we're on our way getting there right now. Another approach for AGI would be OpenCog Hyperon. And I think you can see OpenCog Hyperon as somewhat similar, but more like a concerted approach. So where we have dedicated AI services, neurosymbolic AI, and evolutionary AI, attention allocation, NLP, machine learning, etc. And we have a language called Meta, which we constructed ourselves, and we have a knowledge base, a meta graph, as we call it, where you can store all kinds of knowledge, but also relations between that knowledge, and you can update that knowledge continuously. And then when you have all these AI services that will be able to communicate, to orchestrate with each other and with the knowledge base supported by our dedicated language, that would be a more targeted approach to create AGI. And in the next months or half years, we hope to see the first alpha release of the whole new, stack of OpenCog Hyperon. So OpenCog already goes 10 or 12, 13 years back, 14, I don't know, something like that. And there's some expectation that with Hyperon, which is a new iteration on OpenCog, which is much more scalable and decentralized and also easier to use, the hope is it will have a similar effect as CPU and GPU explosion had on machine learning. So the logic was already there, but because computing is much more accessible and there's a lot more of it, that gave a big explosion in what we call narrow AI services and machine learning. So that is OpenCog Hyperon, and yeah, in contrast to current ChatGPT and those kind of AIs, OpenCog Hyperon would have the advantage not only incorporating that part of AI as well in their structure, but also applying neurosymbolic AI, so being more contextual, having contextual understanding of what is being represented, and a learning system by the atom space, which is very, very scalable knowledge database. Well, not a database, really, a metagraph. And by adapting that knowledge graph continuously, and by doing that with these multiple services, yeah, the system will be able to learn from what it's experience, if I can use that word. So yeah, we're all terribly excited to see what will happen in the next year. Last year we did a lot of groundwork there, including the development of Meta, which is now in a state that we can actually starting to use it. And yeah, we're also hoping that with this state, we can also attract more users and testers from outside of our organization working on that. So all of that is terribly interesting. And oh, last bullet here, and we're only at the first slide. I should really speed up here.
Don't lose yourself.
I told you I wouldn't be able to tell everything. But I hope it's interesting. If not, then you can also raise your hand. Hypercycle is actually, I was just being scared there for a moment, but it's a thumbs up, not a raised hand. So thank you. Hypercycle is our initiative of a side chain, or as we would like to call it, a side chain plus, working on Cardano. And the technology of Hypercycle is different. It's actually not literally a blockchain, since it's ledgerless. It's a ledgerless protocol, or as you could say it, as I heard Ben saying it, a ledger scaled all the way down to one single node. And it is infinitely scalable. And what Hypercycle would enable us to do, if it is in production, is, you can imagine, I talked about all these services on our AI platform, and imagine that by AI-DSL, all these services start talking to each other. And there are numerous front-end solutions that are getting API calls to one service that is an API, gives an API call to another service that has an API call to 5 other services. Well, you can imagine that that could be an explosion, literally an explosion of API calls going on. And that is what we are actively preparing for. And we are doing that also with Hypercycle. And Hypercycle would actually be able, even with those trillions of API calls, to capture all that in a blockchain-like, trustless way with different levels of security. I won't go too much into that because it will take too long, and also because I'm not the biggest expert there. It's quite a technical project. But I'm very, very, very interesting to see that coming from the ground. And I think that will also be, it won't be purely for AGI, it will be very helpful for our purposes, but it will also be a general use, very fast, scalable blockchain, also with reputation built in. Phew. Those are the 4 ways, the 4 main ways, I would say, that we are trying to achieve artificial general intelligence. Also, maybe equally important in a sense are our values, and we try to be open. We value creativity. We love collaboration, just like all of you do, otherwise you wouldn't be here right now. And we believe in being kind, very simple. That's a simple thing, but it's terribly important. And I hope with these values, we will also be able to raise and educate an AI and an AGI and potentially an ASI, artificial super intelligence that will live by the same values and norms that we have. So that would be our purpose. I have 2 more, 3 slides about SingularityNET. Sorry for that. I'll go a little bit faster. Unless you really enjoy it, but so we have SingularityNET Foundation, but SingularityNET at this point is also a kind of incubator for what we call spin-offs, and these are kind of startups, and we are creating these startups because we think they can disrupt the market in a beneficial way. Each of these startups is a universe of its own with sometimes very huge depth in what they're doing, but also because they're all in a way important elements in the wider ecosystem that we think we need to raise and educate AGI and create a beneficial future for us all. And so Rejuve is about longevity. Mindplex is a media platform that will be decentralized and open and unbiased, we hope, or not biased in the wrong way. Awakening Health is about healthcare and robotics in healthcare. So we do a lot with robotics, also with Sophia DAO. Sophia is a very good example of educating and raising an AGI, because in the Sophia verse is that would be a metaverse which would be targeted at that idea that a lot of people will be able to interact with Sophia until she is sufficiently intelligent and independent, and she will be an entity completely of her own without any guardrails, so to speak. NewNet, I'm hopeful that you know them. They're also a very, like Hypercycle, they're a very important part in our stack in the sense that they are doing decentralized computing. And that is also being applied right now to some Cardano nodes, because how can you be decentralized if all your computing nodes are hosted on Amazon, for instance? So I think NewNet is also a very important element in our combined ecosystem. Cogito is creating not stable coins, but something called tracer coins. It's kind of stable coin that is not pegged to a USD or another currency, because that would still make it unstable in a sense. So we peg it to other things and make it or not really peg it, but we let it follow other indexes, and that way hopefully make it more independent. Hypercycle, I told you about. True AGI is leveraging AGI for the enterprise world. I'm missing a few here. Gem Galaxy will be the next decentralized Spotify, and Singularity DAO is another spin-off that is already on the market. Maybe you know them. It's all about DeFi. One more slide, and then I'll ask if there are any questions. So this is a bit of a graphic presentation. Maybe this is a good moment to make it a little bit bigger. Oh, wait a minute. That was not what I meant. So this is a graphic, a diagram to show our technology stack, the technology stack of SingularityNET. If we start at the bottom, one thing we're working on right now with an organization called Simuli is creating a dedicated board for AGI-related computations. And on top of that would be a general decentralized computing in which this board could be used at some places. From NewNet, as I just explained. So NewNet will have some intelligence to couple specific computing requests to specific machines. And some might be very GPU or CPU intensive, while others may be less, but require a big bandwidth, etc. And there's a market for demand and supply, and everybody can create their own metadata and say what they want and not want to have done on their computer. So that's decentralized computer. Cardano rings a bell, but I have a hard time explaining it right now. And it's the greatest blockchain project out there, of course, which is very important to us, also because of Plutus, Haskell integration, computable outcomes. That's a very important ingredient also for us and for AGI of the future. And also doing transactional computing with a lot of security and reliability. So there's a very good reason why we consider ourselves to be a very good partner of Cardano. So all you Cardano guys and girls here, we definitely love you. We're still also on Ethereum. So we aim to be multi-blockchain. We won't leave Ethereum. And then there is a Hypercycle as a layer on Cardano, not on Ethereum, but as a level 2 layer on Cardano, making these trillions of transactions possible. And then we have the platform. So these little cog wheels here would depict the individual services. The service can be very small or can be very big. And I imagine then that OpenCog Hyperon would be a larger server that would be in the service that would be in the middle of all these smaller servers, and could be connected both in the inputs and the outputs with those services. That goes a little bit too far to explain in detail. One more thing that I would like to mention here about this decentralized AI platform is the way I see it evolve once AI-DSL is completely up and functional, is that right now you would need to create a service with a kind of end goal. But if you have a lot of services on the platform, then you have a kind of micro-architecture of services. And that would enable any service supplier not to create a very elaborate service, but maybe make a very small service that just does a very simple thing, but does it very good, very fast, very reliable, and very cheap. And if you can do that, then maybe 20,000 other services will be rather using your service for their functions than trying to do this by themselves. And all the while, the reputation of that small service will increase and increase, which means that more people will be using it. And I see this as a future economy, as an economy of AI services, where there are continuously transactions going on. And just like in the real economy, there will be very niche players doing very specific things, and there will be services that are very generic and very complex, doing very complex stuff. And one of them would be OpenCog Hyperon. So yeah, I hope I can plant that image in your mind of an AI economy of all these services working together, and AI publishers and developers being able to specialize themselves in a certain type of service. And then, as I mentioned, we have all these startups and spin-offs around our core stack. And they are all important parts of our ecosystem for business reasons. And the word disruption was already mentioned earlier in this call. And a lot of them have a clear capability to disrupt the market they're in. Rejuve for the health market, and Jam Galaxy for the musical and entertainment market, and so on and so on. But at the same time, there are also reference cases. They show and will show how projects can leverage our platform and the services on our platform. And besides that, they will be creating services on them by themselves and also publish them on the platform. Whew. And one thing left to say on these things, we have been creating these spin-offs and these startups, but to make the bridge to deep funding, the idea of deep funding is that deep funding can take over that role. So we will continue to see a stream of new startups being built, but in that case being funded not by the foundation, but by the deep funding wallet. All right. Let me, one moment, go to this view, because that was part one. Sorry if I let myself go a little bit, but I'm too enthusiastic about this to be short. Are there any questions so far? Or was this either so clear or so overwhelming that, or already so long that you'd rather have me keep talking than interrupt me with more questions?
I think it's great. I think we're all excited to hear more.
Cool. Thank you for that, David. Let me just check if there are any, if I can see any questions.
In the chat, not so far.
Okay.
Just congratulations.
That's all happy chatting along. All right, then I'll just continue. I didn't practice this presentation beforehand, so I have no idea how long it would take me. I thought it would take me half an hour for the whole presentation, but figured that.
Now we are half an hour on the first point. There we go.
Yeah, okay. But maybe some next part can go a little bit quicker. So the origin of deep funding. We started SingularityNET in 2017 with an ICO. I wasn't working for it back then, but I still say we. I was interested in SingularityNET already at that time. I just missed the opportunity to be involved in the ICO. And then 4 years later, 4 or 5 years later, our CEO, Ben Gertzel, said, well, we minted 1 billion token in our ICO. What would you like, our dear community, how would you like the idea if we would go about and mint another 1 billion tokens? And you can imagine how that was received at first. And at that time, I was also in the community. And of course, people, that is the one thing that you don't do in crypto, of course, diluting the amount by minting new tokens, which were not projected in advance. But the arguments were, if we do this, we will be able to scale faster. AGI is important. The big corps have billions of dollars available. And in order to be able to keep up and to compete with them, it would be great to have some additional means. And I, as a community member at that point, thought, well, it would probably be better to have a smaller part of a very big cake than a bigger part of a very small cake or a cookie. So what we did at that time, we put this up to a vote. We asked the community to vote on this. And I really love our community for this, because an overwhelming amount, like 90% of the people, made this crazy decisions of diluting their own token amount by minting another billion tokens. But these tokens were earmarked. It wasn't just tokens to do whatever we want. There were clear guardrails there. So half of it would go to the foundation, and 30% of those tokens were allocated to deep funding. And these tokens are minted on a monthly basis, and actually in a decreasing amount. So every month, a little bit fewer amount of tokens are being minted. Smaller amount of tokens is being minted. And that way it will take 91 years before the last complete token will be minted. We can continue afterwards with fractions. And the idea behind that is also that, first of all, it's a long-term thing. So we're saying to the community, we won't do this again 3 years after. But also we hope that the token value will increase as the token economy on the platform, the AGI economy on the platform that I talked about will increase. And that way we are confident that also, we don't talk about price a lot because it's really a utility token. But the value of our token will hopefully increase by that utility. And therefore, having decreasing amount might not be the worst thing to happen. So that is where the treasury of deep funding comes from. So every month there are new tokens, every month a little bit less new tokens. And we try to be conservative with spending those, but not too conservative. So that's basically what is mentioned in this slide, and we have the phase 2 foundation proposal. You can still read it back if you like. So deep funding itself in general, the most important part that is what was set out to be already in the proposal. I think it's mentioned here. Deep funding for community development initiatives chosen by democratic process. So that was already more or less set in stone in our deep funding proposal. So deep funding is a community-driven program aiming to drive the utility of the platform and to seed it with compelling new AI services. I just changed this sentence a couple of hours ago, so it sounds like a mission that was done by an advertising agency a year ago. But we are still learning, right? So, but the community-driven part is extremely important, and eventually it should be 100% community-driven. I hope somehow. We are not there yet. To be honest, it's still quite centrally driven, but we try to engage the community where we can and steer it from where we are now to a situation where it can be completely handed over to a mature and well-functioning community. And how that will look in the future is something that we are exploring and finding out right now all together. And I will talk, if I have time left, I will talk about that later and more. So these 3 points are still very accurate. The goal of deep funding is to grow the AI platform. So that is really the goal. And right now we have 5 pools. I'll talk about that a little bit later. But in basis, all of these pools have the goal to help the AI platform grow. And growing can be done by for instance, creating new services on the platform, but another way of growing the platform is by utilizing all these services that are already there. Yeah, community driven. So SingularityNET Foundation, me, and also Peter here, may suggest and advise, and I do that reluctantly, but sometimes I might do that, or I will do that, say I really favor this this project. But in the end, it is the community that will decide which projects will be awarded. And in a sense, that makes my life much easier, because I can speak to all these teams and I can say, I love you all, but it's not me who will decide, it's the community. Yes, we aim for transparency and scalability, ultimately aiming for a sustainable community governed DAO. So that's what I was explaining before. And I think right now, if I can be so modest, I would say we do excel in transparency. Sometimes we still decide things a little bit centrally, because we're at the beginning of this deep funding phase, and there's so many decisions that need to be made, and we can't have a vote for all of them. So it's a little bit centrally driven sometimes, but we're completely transparent in what decisions we made and why we made them, and in detail how we are doing them. You can go to the deep funding site, deepfunding.ai. You can go through our blog post, and you'll see also detailed analysis of what happened in the voting, with the voting rounds, and who voted what, more or less, and what that means, and what our considerations are, and how we want to adjust and improve that process in the next round. Alrighty. See, that was the second part, already a lot faster. Any questions on this part? Well, I'll take a sip of cognac, no tea. Zoe, you have a question. You have, yeah, at least you have your hand up.
Yeah, I have a question. Thank you. Hey, I wanted to ask whether deep funding also funds the spin-offs?
No.
Or no?
No.
Okay.
No. So theoretically, it would be possible, I would say, if a spin-off is completely independent, that they would also submit a proposal. So there are right now two spin-offs, NewNet and Singularity DAO. They are completely independent from the foundation. The others are still in the process of being incubated. We want them to be independent, also as a different journey to decentralization. But as long as they're being funded by the foundation, I don't think it's right to also have them being funded by deep funding, because we would like to keep those two parts of the Treasury separated as much as possible. Not completely, because I'm still paid by the foundation, for instance, and not by deep funding, but.
Thank you so much. Great.
Any other questions? Good question, by the way. Thank you. We'll get to the details of round two after, so I can imagine then it becomes a little bit more actual and concrete. So I wouldn't be surprised if that would also service a few more questions. So unless there's anything right now, I will continue with the third part of this.
Looks good.
Sorry, Felix, you were saying?
I said looks good. Let's move forward though.
Right. Thank you. So round two is open. It has started. It's not like Catalyst, where on the first hour, tens of proposals, maybe hundreds are already pouring in. We're small and we're starting and we're modest. But there are a few proposals out there already. What we saw in the first round, by the way, is that I think we had a round for 4 weeks open for submitting proposals. And if I remember correctly, half of the proposals were being submitted in the last 3 days. And I think the total was something like 45 proposals or something for a first round. And actually I was quite happy with that amount. So we'll see what happens this time. So the schedule right now, this might change. We actually have a poll on that. I'm not sure if it's already out, Peter, but it will be soon otherwise. But the idea is right now that we have 4 weeks as a submission period. And it would be great if proposals are submitted early in the project, because then the community can start to engage and give feedback, and you can use that feedback to improve your proposal. I will tell you about the kind of proposals later. Then we will have 2 weeks where we will freeze the submission portal. You can't add new proposals anymore, because just of the reason that I just mentioned, would be very awkward to have a lot of proposals in the last day. Then the whole community won't have the opportunity to review and assess them and give proper feedback. So we have a freeze period for 2 weeks where the community can just at some ease go over these proposals and read them and give feedback where they're interested. Then we have 1 week where we will prepare our voting portal, and we will also do an eligibility check. That will be a little bit different than last time. Last time there were, for instance, proposals that, in my opinion, didn't really help the platform. They were great proposals, but it didn't help grow the platform. There are some other rules. Right now, it would be important to be in the right pool, for instance. So we'll use that week for that. If we would get 2,200 proposals, maybe we'll take a little bit more than a week, but that's something to be seen. Then there will be voting time, and that will also be for a week. So by that time, we are somewhere in the 1st or 2nd week of February that the voting starts. But by that time, our portal will be supporting both AGIX, our native token, on Ethereum, but also AGIX on Cardano. There's some details between these wallets, etc., that we're still sorting out, but we'll update on the final rules before the voting will start. Oh, one more thing. I got feedback from a few people, at least one of them in this group, that mentioned that the 15th of January was a little bit early with Christmas in between. Now, I figured that for some people, having Christmas in between would be beneficial, because everybody is bored on New Year's Day, etc. So you can perfectly use that time to create a very nice proposal. But there are two groups of people. Some people have a day job and do this as a side job. For those, it might actually be beneficial to have it overlapping with Christmas. But there are also people who are professional, and based on their daily work will submit a proposal. And then, of course, being in the Christmas period might be less of a support. And for a lot of people, it's a busy period anyway, anyhow. So we are preparing, I think, Peter, a poll where we will ask community members, we'll gawk. It's not official, but just to get an impression whether this idea that the 15th is a little bit too early is supported by a lot of people. Should that be the case, we will postpone the whole schedule with 2 more weeks. We are that flexible at DeepFunding.
It will be on Discord tonight.
Sorry, it will be?
It will be on Discord tonight in the DeepFunding General.
All right. Great, thank you. And then, arguably, for some people, maybe the most important slide in this presentation, because here it's about the money. So these amounts are probably not what you're used to in Catalyst. Like I say, we're just a small brother. But I think we can really help our platform forward, also based on these amounts. The first round actually had $1 million of AGIX available. This time, also due to market circumstances, and because we want to balance the current utility of our token also for deep funding, and also reserve sufficient for a later moment when we can hopefully do more with the same token. We are a little bit conservative there. But still, I think these days, $500,000 worth of AGIX is a fair amount that can do some good work for us. So I'll go over these pools one by one. So we have two main pools. Pool A is the biggest one, where $250,000 is allocated, and it's for any project proposal that will, as part of the bigger project, either create a new service and put it on the platform, or utilize a service that is already on the platform, or do both, which is also possible. And it doesn't have to be only a service. It could also include a front-end solution, like an app or something, and that could also be part of the whole project that you are building. But there should be a service utilized on the platform. The first round we had two pools. We split it in two pools with two maximum, one with 40K maximum, one with 150K maximum, or between 40 and 150K. And that was because that moment in time, on Catalyst, it was still usable. The average proposal was still a very low value proposal. That I believe that is not the case anymore. I heard of some really big amounts being awarded. And we wanted to have an opportunity to also have a few bigger projects out there. That is why we made that differentiation. Right now we have a smaller pool, but I also think it would be a good experiment to leave that to the community. Would you rather have 2 or 3 bigger projects, or 15 smaller projects? So in theory, it would be possible to have one project for $250,000 worth of AGIX being awarded, and all the rest not. But as mentioned, that is to the discretion and the judgment of the community of token holders, that is. The second one is actually an outcome of our governance round, where we asked all of the community, listen, people, do you have any ideas how we can improve deep funding round 1 in round 2, not round 3, 4, 5 and forever, but round 2. We got quite a few proposals, and one of them was this one. Why don't we make a specific dedicated pool for existing AI services? Because obviously there are already a lot of AI services out there, some publicly available, but maybe also services created by students or people in their spare time that never found the way to a bigger public, or that could use a platform like SingularityNET to start monetizing on their service. And the hope that we have is that with a smaller amount of $125,000, we would still be able to leverage a larger amount of services because of the work that needs to be done. So this pool would be interesting for different roles. So it would be interesting for AI developers, obviously, or that already have a service. But it would also be interesting for community members that want to go out and find services and know services and contact the developer and say, hey, wouldn't you think it's a good idea? Shall we make a proposal together and then submit it and see if we can both benefit from that? So also the community member in that case can benefit from that. And then finally, for software engineers that might not be that AI versed, but are more about cloud hosting and those kind of things, and would help an AI developer to onboard their service on their platform. That could also be part of that proposal. And on that onboarding, there's more to say. We would like to make onboarding easier. We will be working on that in the future, in the near future. But one way of doing that is actually not offering it as an automated tool, but creating service about it, around it, as a human service, I should say, because some AI services out there will be too specific. There will always be things that need to be done manually. And for that group of services, it would be great to be able to, for an AI developer, to outsource that kind of work. So if any of you in this call or who are viewing this afterwards would be interested in becoming a preferred supplier of SingularityNet and helping other teams to onboard, I think potentially you can make a very healthy living of that. So then just contact me. But it could also be done as part of this round. So I'm expecting a lot of this round. I really hope to see a lot of services land, at least a lot of proposals being made, and then also services land on our portal. Another difference with, we were targeting smaller proposals here. So what we're saying here is that we will only pay out in this case when the service has actually landed on the portal. In all the others, we have a milestone-based approach, not a time-based approach. So if you have a proposal and you are awarded and you start working, the basic idea here is, and you're doing that in Catalyst right now also for the higher awarded things, but we've started with that. You have to tell me, Jan, I created my milestone. Listen, here's the deliverable. You can see it. Now give me my money. That's basically how it works. There are some more details to it, but I won't go into that. And I always say that was the best decision I made, because it ensures that there's so much less potential for friction between the deep funding people on our end and the deep funding teams. Because if for whatever reason you need a little bit longer than you expected at the beginning, it's no problem. You can take your time, but it's your time, and you will get funded when you are ready and when you deliver on a milestone. And I think that works very well for both ends of the spectrum. All right, 3 supporting services, pools, sorry. Pool C was also a direct result of our governance round. And actually, here what made the pivot, what made the final push, is the additional voting weights that came from the reputation score gained by contributors on our portal. And if I have time, I would love to tell you a little bit more about that, because that is really the governance process that we are after here. So this pool is a small pool. It's a supportive pool for people that have a great idea, but need that idea to mature further before they can apply it to a regular round A, I would say, in the next deep funding round. So the goal should always be, I have an idea and I want to submit it in the next deep funding round, but I need something. And that something that can be team members, so you can get some visibility of your idea. You can also get good feedback on your idea. That could in itself already be very valuable. But it might also be that you want a little bit support to create a technical design, or to create a good UX interaction design or something, or do market research. That would also be feasible. And then you can get sponsored with, I imagine, a couple of $1,000 to get over that first threshold. And maybe there's somebody in the community who would like to take on that job, and then that person could get paid by that amount that is supported here, for instance. But it's very experimental. While Pool B had huge support overall by our complete community, Pool C was a little bit more of a mixed bag, and it was the reputation score that finally switched the balance to having it in. So will be very interesting to see what will surface there. And if it's good, we'll keep it, and if it's not good, we'll either change it or remove it. Pool D, marketing initiative. So another way to support the growth of the platform is by marketing, by getting more reach by getting attention from both developers or AI consumers on the platform. So if you have a good idea to achieve that, you're very welcome to create a proposal. You don't need to be an AI developer or anything. If you're a marketeer or just have a good idea, you could already do this. The one thing here is that it would be needed to make it some kind of KPI driven and measurable. So we're just not just handing out money for a great idea, spending 5,000 on Google ads, whatever. No, you will get it if you can also show that you are actually getting results with it. And I'll go right through the last pool. 75,000 is a little bit more sizable because that is reserved for tooling. And that tooling can be either for the platform itself, for instance, to make onboarding easier. It might also be tooling that will help the deep funding process. And to be very honest here, I'm with a few current team members of deep funding. I'm preparing a proposal. I won't be submitting it. It won't be my proposal, but I will be advising on it for a reputation dashboard. I want to keep track of reputation scores. I'm doing it now in an Excel sheet, but that's suboptimal. And the next phase, so first of all, it will be dedicated to whatever we are doing currently on deep funding. Would love to spend another half hour talking about that, but sorry. But in the next phase, I also want to make this available more generically for the wider ecosystem and the wider cryptosphere out there, including Cardano. If we can have a crypto dashboard where we can plug in different data and different reputation sources, and any user of that data could mix and match and could say, that is a reliable source and that is a reliable source. And I want to use these scores in this way to create my own reputation that is relevant for my purposes. I think that would be a great thing to have for the wider decentralized community. So that's a little bit about my personal vision on this. Just a few screenshots after this. I can also go through the live slides, but for speed, I thought it would be good just to have it out here. So if you go to our website, proposers.deepfunding.ai, you can also get there through our website. And you go to missions. It's called missions in our, this is a portal created by our partner Sway. And it has a lot of cool features that we can already use, including, for instance, a Web3 login, and including something which I did especially for us. At first, you had to log in before you could see anything, but now everything is out in the open for everybody, but you can also only start interacting and engaging after you are logged in. So those are just two features that I really appreciate on this platform. They're a small team, they're growing, and we're trying to grow with them and help them evolve their features in a way that it's also useful for us. So that about our partner. But here you see these five missions. Here they are in the wrong order. But normally there would be pool A, pool B, pool C, D, and E, just like I explained. And if you would click on one of them, and this is from our governance round actually, then you would see each individual proposal like a card as displayed here. And if you would click that, if you think this is an interesting proposal that you would like to learn more about, then you will get a page like here on the right with all details of the proposals. It's quite free format. You can basically do, there are a number of questions laid out already, but you have a lot of freedom in what you want to put there. At the bottom of that page, you have feedback. So feedback is important. And it's divided into 3 groups. So this is core, basic existing functionality of our portal provider. You can list your concerns, you can ask your questions, or you can provide strengths that you see. So that's already a nice feature. There's still things I think can be improved here, but that's maybe for another session. And then finally, what you can also do, which is also a little bit confusing, you can rate each project. So each person can already give their rating. You can also do that anonymously, by the way. You can even submit a proposal anonymously if you want. That rating is not the same as voting. So rating you can do all the time. Voting is in a specific period and you need to have tokens for that. Rating can be done by everybody. So rating is a first gog, both for the community and for the proposers out there to see, how is my proposal received? And actually in the community governance round, we also use that as part of our reputation system. So going back to the reputation system, in our current first primordial version of reputation, you would get in a governance round, you would get points for a proposal, and the better it's rated, the more points you would get. But you would also get points for creating comments, feedback, but you would get much more points if your feedback is viewed positively. And if your feedback, if you get negative feedback, it could also give you a negative reputation. So just spamming this for the sake of quantity is already something that might be tricky. Also, I'm already starting with the governance part, but I think it's easy with this screen. So bear with me for a moment, and then we can have questions and answers on the deep funding round. And now I lost my track here.
Maybe,
yeah, one thing. So it would not be based on KYC or anything. It would be wallet based. So you create an ID based on your wallet. You can also have a traditional login if you want, but that means that everybody knows what wallet XYZ is doing, and you can build a great reputation for yourself, but nobody needs to know that it is actually Jan Horlings living in the Netherlands on a certain address. And still we can connect it with the behavior on our voting portal, but more about that in the next session. Phew, time for me to be quiet and take a sip of my brandy, tea.
Curtis had a really good question.
Any questions?
Yes, Curtis had a really nice one. Curtis, you want to go for it? You wrote it in the chat already.
This slide on screen, because that might be the most interesting one.
Yes,
I mean, sure.
exactly.
It was the differences between like the new project indicator and the projects in ideation phase, and Felix did respond clearly with that. So now I understand the differences there.
Okay, yeah, well, maybe so my experience with Zoom meetings is that sometimes the most interesting communications are being held in the chat, which is fine for the people attending, but it's a missed opportunity for the people who are watching it later. So I'm completely open to do this in the open, so everybody can learn a bit from it.
The question was from Curtis, is it that new projects are all new projects in the other four pools, so like a tag? I was wondering, is the difference between you and new end projects in ideation phase? So I assume it is just a tag for new projects. But how I understand it, the main difference for new projects is, let's say you have a project, you have already a team, you have done already some foundational work, you know pretty well what you want to do and you want to come in here. Ideation project is much more, you have totally completely new idea, not yet a team, not yet really a roadmap, but you want to go for it. And then the ideation phase pool, this might be then the spot to go for you, to first find collaborators, ironing out the roadmap, milestones, whatnot. And then maybe coming in the next funding round, when your project is then well established already, and then apply for serious funds then, for example.
Yeah, no, that's totally correct. So we saw also in round one, there are people with ideas, but not completely articulated. And what you also see a lot is that people have good ideas, but that they are not necessarily AI developers. Or it could even be AI developers that are not necessarily have UX skills. And they may not be a complete team at that time. So I think I expect this would be a perfect way to try and collect interest for your proposal and get other team members involved. But it would also be possible just to get some budget, and then for instance, letting somebody else on Upwork or wherever do marketing research for you as a one-off. That would also be proper use. But at the end of Pool C, there should be clear deliverables. There should be milestones and deliverables. This is what we want to achieve. Just saying, I want to have 5K because I have a great ideas won't cut it. At the end, the outcome should be a proposal that will be submitted in the next round. Curtis.
Sorry, I don't want to keep popping in, but you did briefly talk about essentially voting against a project. And I do find that to be valuable information to the proposer as well. But I am curious how we can avoid things that happen similar to Catalyst, where whales would come in and actually downvote some of these proposals, and that outweighed the positive responses that they got. So I'm just curious what types of mechanisms or strategies are going to get used to avoid those types of issues.
Very good question. And we have some ideas about that. We are progressing in that direction, but it will also some time for us and our community to mature there. And I would love to get in there, but that is what the next section is all about, actually. So that would be more like the governance principles. But it's a topic that is close to my heart, and yeah, I really am searching and looking and exploring to find the best way to keep both keep the community alive, rewarding people that do constructive things, and at the same time keeping it open and fresh, and not make sure that only the oldies get the rewards and not the new people. And of course, trying to minimize the impact of gaming the system. I think we should be open that there can always be some kind of gaming, and that's the nature of the game in a sense. But as long as it doesn't influence the final outcome or doesn't have a decisive influence in the outcome, it's not necessarily a terrible thing. Anyone else?
Yeah, Curtis mentioned already. Kevin, Jen, you had your hand up for a second.
Oh, yeah, I think I can save it for later. It's a pretty technical, it's like voting question.
All right. Thanks, Kevin. In that case, I see David with a hand up.
Hey guys, do you know when the next round is planned for?
Yes, now. It is open. We have round 2, which is open for submission right now. So it will be open at least till 15th of January. We're having a poll now if due to Christmas holiday, we should keep it open a little bit longer. So if you have a good idea for a proposal, David, you still have a couple of weeks at least time to submit it.
I do have, I'm thinking to propose, but I'm not sure whether to propose in which pool basically. So I guess my question is, do you know when the deep funding round 3 is? So we can, for instance, if we're planning to apply to the ideation, that we can kind of plan for runway or when the next target for funding from deep funding we can apply for.
So roughly the idea in the back of our head is that 4 times a year would be a good rhythm for deep funding rounds. Having said that, all kinds of things might happen. And I'll give you an example. And that is also a good example to understand. So we're about learning, right? And rules should be there to help the process and not for the sake of themselves. So I can imagine that if this new services pool B would be a great success, or if we see a lot of potential for it, that we will separate it from the next deep funding round and do it with a cycle of its own. And I can imagine we won't want to do that every 3 months, but if there are sufficient amount of proposals, we will do it every month. And then we have a deep funding round every 3 months, but we have in between maybe 2 rounds for new services. Something like that could happen. Also, I mentioned that in round 1, we had 2 pools. In round 2, we have 5 pools. Now, I have to be honest there, D and E were already valid ways of using those pools, but we integrated them with other pools, and having them separated ensures that they get more visibility, but also that we can limit the amounts more properly. By the way, one thing I forgot to mention, A and B are connected vessels. So should there not be enough proposals for round B, we will use the remaining budget for pool A if there are enough proposals in pool A and vice versa. Yeah, I forgot. So I have 2 hands now. Kevin, on the rebound.
Okay, yeah, I have actually another question, and it's about the duration. So like in this, so when you submit in the submission period, and then when you get feedback, are you able to make modifications to your proposal? Yes. Or do you have to wait until the stable period to do so?
No. Change as much as you want, as often as you want. The learning process is not just for us, but also for the proposals. We architected this whole design. So we could also say you have 3 days or a week time for entering the proposals. But the whole idea is to try and to have a period where you can engage with the community. And of course, engagement only makes sense if you learn from it and do something with it. So by all means, adapt your proposal. And also during the 2-week stable point period, you can still adapt it. But then afterwards, the 1 week where we look at eligibility and put it at the portal, it's really frozen. Then you're also not supposed to make any changes anymore, because otherwise people wouldn't know what they're voting for.
Oh, so there's no like constraints. Like even if I submit it, I can still edit it on the Sway portal.
There was one smart guy in the last round that submitted an empty proposal, and maybe I shouldn't be putting any ideas in somebody's head here. But he thought, well, I can just at the last day submit an empty proposal, and then I still have 2 weeks to fill it. Now, I thought this person had made a mistake, or it was just a test, so I threw it away. And then he told me, but I want to do something with it. And I said, sorry, pal, but that was not the idea anyway. So bad luck. So I feel at this stage, so at some point, as we mature as deep funding, we'll get more and more of those edge cases, and we can describe what we want to do with these edge cases. But in the meantime, I feel pretty free to use common sense and do it in the spirit, make decisions in the spirit of deep funding, and be completely transparent in what I did, when I did it, and why I did it. But suppose that somebody would be clever and submit 10 proposals with 3 sentences, then I would say this is not in the spirit of deep funding, and sorry, pal, but I'm taking them out, something like that. Alrighty, 2 more hands. I hope that this answered your question.
Yeah, it did. Thank you.
Cool. Our own Felix.
And then for everybody who starts already about thinking of submitting a proposal, I would definitely encourage and motivate you to do so, because in the first week of January, we will definitely come back with a second town hall and really have this in the style like we usually do our town halls. We will have breakout rooms, really short main room, directly breakout rooms, where you are then able to present your project or your idea to the community as well, and to get some last feedback there, and you will still have some time then to adjust your proposal. So throw it already on the platform, and all announcements then for a second town hall will be made in the beginning of January. And you're very much welcome then to present your rough ideas, projects, get feedback, improve it, and get clarity then from others as well.
Yeah, I know we can turn tables and it can be you people talking instead of me talking all the time. That would be great. Thanks for that addition, Felix. Already looking forward to that next round. And thanks for organizing that and all the effort you're putting into it. Really appreciate it. You know that. Victor.
Hi everyone. My question is regarding funding, because there is a major difference between Catalyst and deep funding. We know that in Catalyst, proposals receive the funds on a monthly basis as a function of the total funding of the proposal and the planned time of execution of the proposal as well. While I guess that in deep funding, it's only at the end, and if the community approves the proposal, or this, at least I think this was like this in the first fund. So
you get your funds all at the end of a milestone. At the end of a milestone. Mm-hmm. So it works like this. You submit a proposal, there's a vote, and you're awarded. Then in the back end, we sign a contract, not that special, but at least that we have something official before handing you over and having you started. So on both ends, the agreement is clear. Then in round one, it was the case that we, just like in Catalyst, we gave you a starting amount of, and at that point it was $5,000 worth of AGIX for everybody as a fixed amount to get started. And from that moment on, the rule was you have predefined milestones. That was part of your proposal. It was obligated to have these milestones, and these milestones should have a name. They should have a budget related, and they should have an explanation and a deliverable. So, for instance, I will have a UX design for my app in milestone 3, or a clickable demo, or whatever. So then I wouldn't chase you, but instead you would come to me and say, listen, Jan, I have my clickable demo right now, so here you can see it. And based on that, I would like to get reimbursed for that milestone. So in advance, you were in charge in round one in how much you want to, if you want to have big milestones or smaller milestones, didn't matter to me, because if they were bigger, you just have to wait longer, but you would get more for that milestone. Of course, there's always still a risk that after the 8 of 10 milestones, you would still drop out. But at least you've done a lot of work and you've shown commitment, etc. And the whole spirit, by the way, of deep funding is not a spirit of policing. We really believe in collaborating and together trying to make the best of your effort and your solution, and not just looking like a civil engineer or whatever at the rules, but also trying to make something cool together. And then that's also what we see. We have optional, not obligated, bi-weekly meetings with the teams. And of course, there are always a few that are always there and a few that you never see there. But the dynamics in those meetings is always very good and positive and constructive, and people reacting to each other. And also send out a survey with feedback to the teams, and was also actually really positive. So in this round, it's a little bit different, but it's quite, so it's a little bit complex. So first of all, what we're doing is to protect our treasury against sudden downwards movements of the token price. We say we will take into account a fixed minimal token price. So whatever the real token price is doing, it will never go below that. And we picked that value well below the current value and also below the all year value of our token. So we hope and expect that it will not go below that. But should it go below that, then the funding might be impacted. And if that is the case, we'll have a one-on-one conversation and we'll talk about what is the best solution and what best fit for you. Now, because that might mean that in an exceptional situation, you might not get refunded for the total amount that you projected for a milestone. We reverse the order. We are now saying, listen, you will get the reward at the beginning of a milestone. But we still do expect an X number of milestones, a reasonable differentiation between your milestones and steps, and we will still disburse milestone based. But it's just that the order, you won't get the 5K at the beginning, but you will get the payment for the first milestone. And that first milestone should not be 90% of the total funding. I think that makes sense. So that is how it works. And yeah, like I mentioned before, that whole milestone thing was the best decision that I ever made on deep funding. Any
Great.
questions?
Got it. Thank you.
Cool, cool. All right, it's already turning into a marathon, people. Tell me, would you still like to go into the final part about decentralization and governance? Or would you prefer to leave that now and to do that in a next town hall as an isolated thing? Can we organize a quick vote on that? I don't know. Maybe put your hands up if you're saying, I would prefer to end it right now and to address this properly in a next round. 1, 2, 3. Oh, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think that's a sizable and counting. 6. I think at least half of us here have their hand up. So let's, I think that's a good decision. So I have something in store for the next time. I already know what to tell next time. And it will be very interesting. So I hope I will also be seeing all of you back then. So we'll talk next time about reputation, about quadratic voting, about voting weights, about, well, one thing I want to mention here is that based on that reputation score that we're creating, we're also handing out rewards. So in our deep governance, community governance rounds, we had 100,000 AGIX that we distributed over all contributors. And because it was the first round, for some people, that was quite a sizable amount that they got for, well, relatively little effort. I hope in the next round there will be more contributors, so it will be more balanced than that. But I hope this will be just an extra incentive. I hope it won't be the only reason, but an extra incentive for people, for you, to come to our portal, proposals.deepfunding.ai, and become engaged. And if you don't create a proposal, but then react and give your honest feedback on proposal and constructive and help the people that did go through the effort of submitting a proposal, because it always takes more effort than you think, to respectfully give them feedback that they can use to make it even better. And in the process of doing so, yeah, get some nice rewards for that. And that's, as a small nudge for the next time, is also one of the ways, and maybe the most important way, we try to counter that thing of whales doing negative stuff. But we can talk about it next time, and I would also very much appreciate a discussion on that next time, because in the end it's supposed to be decentralized processes, etc. And there's more than one way of solving this, and I'm also always very much interested in your opinions on the same. All right, I would say, unless you, are there any questions at this point? That won't take me half an hour to answer, because then we don't have a solution.
Usually a question is very often, okay, what next? What should I do? I think simplest answer there is definitely sign up on the or sign in the platform already. I put a link again here in the live chat.
Yeah. If you're wanting to submit a proposal, I would urge you to go to deepfunding.ai, our website, and go to the rules section and read it from top to bottom. You will hear a lot of what I said here and more than I told here. It's always my intention to keep the rules as small as possible, but somehow these things tend to grow anyhow. But I hope it's clear and yeah, readable for everybody. So I would, if you want to submit, I would do that first, and then go to the portal and submit. If you want to read the proposals, you can go to the portal, you can just read up, you can see what it is. There is already without any login whatsoever. And if you want to engage, and I hope you will, then you can sign up. And the preferred method would be to do that with the Web3 wallet. Unfortunately, right now, that's only MetaMask, so only Ethereum based. But there are also other ways. If you do it with a regular login, there's a way for you to, on your profile, add your Cardano address. And then we can use that also to connect with the voting portal and to give you tokens. All tokens on the reputation and the incentive rewards are based on ADA, by the way, AGIX on ADA. Right, still two more questions. Zoe.
Yeah, you maybe answered a part of it just now. I wanted to ask whether the rewards are Cardano native assets or ERC-20, or whether that's even choosable.
No, it's not choosable. It's so it's so this comes from these rewards are being paid from the DeepFunding Treasury, and the DeepFunding Treasury was based on the tokens minted in our phase 2. And what I forgot to tell you is that the second amount of 1 billion tokens, they were all minted on Cardano as native tokens. Another question, Zoe?
No, thank you very much.
Okay, I thought you had your hand up and down, but so that is the reason why all rewards and all incentives, but also the budgets for the proposals are all in AGIX on Cardano. Last question, perhaps, Kevin?
Yeah, I just wanted to follow up on that. So there isn't really any value to hold AGIX tokens on ERC-20 anymore, right? Since when, like, for example, when you're voting and when you're receiving like funding, etc., they're all done through Cardano. So if you have AGIX tokens on ERC-20, then that would not be included when you're voting, right?
Yeah, sure, it would be included. So we are multi-chain, so you can use them on both ends. So right now, if you want to pay for with tokens on our marketplace, the marketplace is not yet fully ported to Cardano. You would still need to use AGIX on Ether, but that will change. And yeah, we will become, the idea is to become multi-blockchain fully. So our voting portal will also accept both wallets, basically.
Oh, okay. Cool. Yeah, thanks.
And there's some tricky technicalities there, but at this hour, I won't go into that anymore, and we'll leave that for the next time.
Okay. Yeah.
All right. Thank you all. I loved presenting all this. I always love to tell about SingularityNET, also about deep funding. My own family is usually bored after 3 sentences, and I'm always happy to see an enthusiastic community like this one. So thanks a lot for joining this, and I'm very glad to have such a great community of interested people, and I hope to see a lot more of you in the next times. Also, you people out there that are not here live, but hopefully will be watching this recording. So thanks a lot, everybody, and hope to be seeing you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, everyone. Great week ahead. Take care of yourself. Stay healthy. Don't hang too much in front of the screen. Definitely. And yeah, really happy to see you around in one or another place.
Yeah. Also, our social channels. We have Telegram channel, we have Discord channel, we have a number of Discord channels on DeepFunding and one server on SingularityNET. Welcome to join there and ask any questions. And if I am available, if I have any opportunity, then I will answer them, or Peter will answer them, or anyone else of our community. All right. Thanks a lot. That's a wrap.
Thanks,
If you're
guys.
in time
Happy
zone, have a great
holidays.
evening. And otherwise,
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you.